Hello, everyone. This is Donna Savage with Talk with Savage Desires, and tonight we have lovely L.A. Wade. Be-
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining me tonight. We're hoping to have a party tonight. Is that right?
We are going to have a party tonight. I'm a little tired, but I'm always up for a party.
Oh my God, L.A. Thank you so much for joining me because, girlfriend, we just met.
We did.
And I think we just hit it off so amazingly. So thank you for last minutes. Like, I really appreciate it. So before we head in, so everyone, this is L.A. Wade, aka Cocktails.
Don't we all have many?
We all have many, but before we jump into the whole cocktails, this episode is about sex addiction. And I know you have your brand and accessories that you call Sex Addiction. There it is. There it is. So I want to know the story behind the sex addiction and why you decided to call and say, I'm a sex addict. So come on, LA, let's just dig into the stories. Hi, everyone. Everyone, thank you for joining LA and myself. This is going to be juicy. And please ask your questions,
Yeah,
because it's live and learn, and this is how we grow.
I'm an open book.
She is an open book, and she said it many, many times. So, LA,
Yes.
why are you calling yourself, or you have a shirt or your accessory, sex addict?
Okay, so it's a multi-layered conversation.
Yes, for
Honey,
sure.
darling, I think that's you.
I'm going to show you everything.
Okay, so basically, this is the scenario. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When I was, first of all, anybody who's watching, go to my YouTube channel, hit subscribe, and then go down to where it says my story. And where you'll hear in my story, what you'll hear in my story is that I was molested from the age of 5. I had very many different abuses that occurred within my life throughout my entire from childhood all the way to adulthood. But I don't know where they left off and I took over.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when you're engaged in sexual activity, sexual promiscuity from a young age, and it's due to abuse, I wasn't sure where I was the one that took over from the abuser. What I mean by that is I started to create a codependency, a coping mechanism based on how I understood myself sexually through the people who abused me. And those things never changed as I went into my own intimate romantic relationships. In fact, because of the abuse and the trauma that I experienced as a child, there's an idea of, I don't know if you're familiar with the term, like erratic. It's like an erratic desire to avoid abandonment.
Abandonment issues, yes.
Right. So it's an attachment style issue where everything that I was taught in terms of attachment was done through sex. If you were able to continue giving this person satisfaction, then that meant they were going to stay. Right? They're not going to leave. So when I start to realize that anytime that relationship seemed threatened, or I developed a closer relationship with God and started to identify myself separate from my abusers, that's what kind of happened with this whole idea of what's been happening my whole life that I didn't know until literally 2 years ago. And I was married for 16 years. And in that marriage, I was completely loyal all the way till the very end. And at the end, there was a reason for that coming to, my trust with my ex-husband was compromised. Whether it's true or not true, it didn't matter, because for me, with the trauma that I experienced, I needed to trust that person because I had dedicated so many years. We were together for 16 years. And I had come so far, and I didn't know that I didn't know I was on the wagon, so to speak. Right?
So So I get you. So you've been going through sexual trauma since you were a kid, but why a sex addict though? Because it sounds like a normal behavior for so many women. They think they're in love and give up their body, and we're having sex to keep a person. So why is it that you th- you're saying that you are a sex addict. If you see where I'm going with this,
Well,
because a
yeah,
lot of
we are all sex addicts.
to a
We
certain
live in a
degree.
very hypersexual society,
Mm-hmm.
and it's shown that we gain access to power, money, inclusion through our vaginas. I mean, Cardi B is one of the most successful people. She was a stripper before. Like, you understand? We understand as women what we have.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all exploited that at some extent, to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I hear like some noise. Do you hear
Is it
it? Okay.
gone?
Yeah, it's gone now.
Okay.
Sorry, what was I saying? I just heard this
So we're
noise.
talking about Cardi B.
We were talking about Cardi B and the fact that we not all, some women don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any of them, but I'm sure there's some women out there that don't. But if they're honest with themselves, I almost feel like relationships are low-key prostitution. Relationships are very transactional, and that as melanated people, a lot of us sit on codependencies. There's nothing wrong with being interdependent on one another, but
Mm-hmm.
codependency is different. And if it's not done mindfully and it's connected to intersectional abuse and trauma, then
Mm-hmm.
it's going to show up in different ways in all kinds of relationships. That's the other thing that I noticed, is that my sex addiction is labeled like a love addiction, essentially, because I was afraid of losing that person. So I would barter my sex for love.
And I'm not to interrupt but that's what I was going to ask you too. Why is it that you're not looking for love,
I am looking
emotions?
for
No,
love.
emotion. Like I'm, put it in, gearing it that way versus saying that you're addicted to sex. Of course, we're all looking for love, and love show up for everyone differently,
It's an
right?
addiction. Addiction is something like, if you take the word sex out and
Mm-hmm.
you use the word addiction, addicted to alcohol, addicted to drugs. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it wreaked havoc in my life. I lost money. It impacted my employment. It's done a lot of things to my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when it's not gone, I still struggle with lots of things. Not where I was, but I've come so much farther along now. Right?
Nice. Destiny's saying yes. She like using sex as as a transaction. So she's co-signing with what you're saying, and you're right. There's so many women that are going through the same thing as you, or like for other reasons, and don't own up to it. They come up and have different words or different saying of what they're going through, because as you know, there's this huge thing around sex and shame.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what it is. But more to just go back to what you just said, that there's a lot of women experiencing this.
Mhm.
I would have to say that there's a large portion of women that don't acknowledge their sexual abuse.
No, of course not, because it's shame, right? It's shame.
I know, but it's showing up in these behaviors.
Hmm.
I'm labeling my behaviors because I have better control over it when I do. When you live in denial, good luck, because you're going to keep replicating the same patterns that you're frustrated with, that keep showing up in your life,
I
that
agree.
you have to have a certain amount of self accountability for.
Hmm.
So that was the other reason to label myself what it is. And being a sex addict doesn't mean that I'm off the wagon and just out here in these streets trying to like search for love. People can be alcoholics and remain alcoholics for the rest of their life, but still never pick up a bottle again.
Hmm.
So it's not about, just out here in these streets like that, gaining body counts.
Oh gosh, and it's funny, when I spoke to you, and the whole when it comes to sex addiction, and as you said, somebody can be an alcoholic without even picking up a bottle. It's just like sex addiction doesn't mean you have to have a body count either. It's
Right.
about even self pleasure. And a lot of people don't think that. When I was younger, when I'm thinking about sex addict, I'm thinking you're going all over the place, throwing yourself all around. But with growth and understanding and coaching and classes, and you realize that sex addiction, or just like alcohol, is not what it seemed to be.
Right.
And I love the fact that you're out here and you're talking about it,
Mhm.
because it's not talked about, number one. And I'm sure maybe a few people that's on the stream would even think the same way, like a lot of people are thinking that you have your body count is huge because you're saying, you know what, hey, I talk about cocks all the time and I'm a sex addict. You know what
Oh
I
yeah. Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah. They
People have,
definitely the first impression. In fact,
yes.
I dated somebody who felt very uncomfortable with
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
and you know you have to respect that. But I was that way before, so I mean I don't hide who I am. I kind of just own it. What's the matter?
I keep hearing something. Sorry, but I think it's a neighbor and my window's open.
Oh, you wanted to close it, but you can't
That's
leave.
okay. No, I'm not leaving. Let's continue. This is too hot.
Yeah. What can I tell you about my journey? It's my father died in 2014, and I started to get repressed memories. I knew that I had been open access early to sexual abuse,
Mm-hmm.
but when my father died, I didn't realize the extent to which it had happened,
Mm-hmm.
and how young it had happened. And you know, you could have a whole conversation about what repressed memories kind of feel like or how they can
That's
affect
another
you.
show.
That's a different show. But regardless, he had passed away, and that's what was happening to me. And I don't think my husband at the time could cope with what was happening. He didn't understand. And I heard that you shouldn't ask people to do something for you who don't have the ability to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially what was happening. And then that combined with the breakdown of trust,
Mm-hmm.
that's part of what allowed that. What happened? How do you know if you have an addiction?
Yeah. Okay, there you go. How do you know if you have an addiction? Asking for a friend.
So there's some conflicting things about sex addiction. I think they have a term called compulsive hypersexuality or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's only one aspect of sex addiction, so it's incomplete. So psychotherapists are really just split on the idea that it's an actual disorder because
Exactly.
they don't know where to put it. So
Exactly.
so for instance, I heard somebody say that it was like having an eating disorder because it's kind of more like it's some and the reason why they said it was like an eating disorder is that it's with something like drugs or alcohol, it's external to you. You could go your whole life and never engage with that stuff. It doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
you can be addicted to it. But with sex addiction, much like eating, these are natural things. These are things that are supposed to take place in your life. So when the thing that is natural to you becomes distorted and out of order, then
Mm-hmm.
that's an indication that there could be something else going on there.
And but you know what? And you said that correctly. And it's recognition, because as you
Mhm.
said, people can feel this way and don't say anything and don't do the research and don't do the work. Because
Right,
in reading this, there, as you said, it's on the border. Like they have no idea where to place this. Is it an
right.
addiction or is it an addiction?
Yeah.
Carol is saying there's a stigma around the word addict, hence the reason why people try to replace the word with less harsh words. And I agree, Carol.
Yes, absolutely. But
Mm-hmm.
I call a thing a thing. Jan Levant has been teaching me for years now. And that's a large part of my awareness is that it wasn't so much an awareness about sex addiction, it was awareness about myself and how I was acting.
Oh, you were showing
And
them.
then,
Yes.
yeah, so I'm showing up a
Yes.
certain way. That gave me the words to Google what was going on. What happened?
Mm-hmm.
You always like this. What's
Mm-hmm.
that? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it would allude to these different things. There are tests that you can take that it's probably like the DSM where they give you a certain amount of markers,
Mm-hmm.
but the DSM hasn't codified it yet. So, but there's something called the ICDM-11, and it is recognized there. So, like I said, it's split. At the end of the day, there are definite things that if you have experienced in your life and these things are also happening in your life, then that's a better indication that there's something else going on there. And then also looking at what an addict is. So if you
Exactly.
understand what an addict is, then this will help you, kind of identify what's going on in your life.
Yeah, and just like Carol says, people just don't like the word addict. The minute you say
Yeah.
addict, it just throw them off the fence. Like,
Well, they don't like the word,
self-defense.
right. They don't like the word racist either. But just because you don't hang people from trees doesn't mean you don't practice microaggressions in the office, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
You're still practicing racist ideology,
Exactly.
right?
That's great. Wow. You just said so much just a while ago, and it is just mind blowing because honestly, I've learned so much just in just speaking to you, and
Oh,
also
you know
the
what
fact.
I can share?
What? Go
What I
ahead.
can share. I actually wrote something down about what to the person's question about how you know. So
Mm-hmm.
frantic for me, it was like I had a frantic effort to avoid abandonment. I was in many unstable relationship patterns. Um, what else? Chronic feelings of emptiness. You know, inappropriate anger. But for me, my anger was led to the repressed memories coming back up.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and so I would use sex as a form of cutting. It was a release for me, as well as it being a dependency for me to feel safe because that was my attachment style. I needed somebody with me all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
COVID has been the greatest gift because essentially what it's done is has forced me to be alone. And
Mm-hmm.
um, people don't have the same patience when their rights and freedoms have been infringed upon also. So people don't have time for your shit anymore.
Mm-hmm. You know what, LA? So Greg asked that question, and Greg, that's how she figured out that she was a sex addict.
Yeah,
So
of
it's going to show up for different persons and different people.
course.
You know what? Because what LA says, somebody may say, but I'm not a sex addict, and that's not how I felt. That for me, it could be abandonment issues. So I like what you did. You said, this is how I felt. And a part of that also is abandonment issues. So
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's going to show up for everybody. It's just like, in
Oh
everything that
yeah.
we do, and every stigma, every word, and every meaning shows up differently for everyone.
I
So
will say that if you're asking yourself if you're a sex addict, then
mhm,
that's at least a good place to start.
yes,
Because
definitely.
you know what you did. You
Hmm. And
know what you did.
and you're speaking too, and I remember for me, because as women, and Destiny said it as well, that we do exchange of energy, pleasure for money, right?
Mhm,
But you're not
mhm.
realizing that this is it. But this is how society has taught you. You're as a woman, your vagina is the prize. So in order for you to get this price, you pay one way or the other. Either
Right.
not, it doesn't necessarily have to be tangible like money. It could be emotion, keeping company, or something. Because everybody's different. Of receiving is different, right?
Right.
For me, you know, I thought I would have to make love to my partner, my ex-husband at the time, because I was looking for an emotion.
Yeah.
Again, this is all
That's the
abandonment.
currency.
Exactly, right? So that was for me, was payment, is just the company of having this
Yeah.
person here with me all the time, but
Right.
never thought of it as an addict at that time.
Right.
At that time.
Neither did I.
Exactly. It's after you're learning and who we are and growing up and asking the right questions, and
Right.
make, and asking, why is this happening? Asking the right questions. And you said it, the first discover of who you are as a person, as a woman or a man, is asking the right questions. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I showing up this way? Why is it every time I have intercourse or do something, I'm feeling bad about myself? So I
Mhm.
really love the way, LA, that you broke this down, and you broke it down to an amazing T. Um, let's see what Craig is saying. I'm not an addict. I know what an addict. I just like black women a lot. There's no,
Yeah, I love black men. I
yeah,
really
me too.
do.
I love black men a lot too.
Yeah.
So
That's funny.
it is funny. Oh
Well, you
my
know what? That
God.
I want to say that with Cocktails with LA, what I made a point of doing is I operate on 5 tenets, which is the whole purpose for me doing what I do is to destigmatize.
Mhm.
It's to she says stigma again. To destigmatize. So I want to destigmatize it because I
Mhm.
know it is stigmatized. So destigmatize, educate, empower, um, laugh, and heal. Right.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
those are my 5 tenets, and I believe that laughter. I'm bringing that up because when he makes these jokes or whatnot, I think it's important to
I,
laugh,
I
and
agree.
I've had to learn how to laugh at myself and
We
not
have
take
to be
myself so seriously.
serious, because that's when you start hurting more. Can you imagine going through all that pain and
Yeah.
then no pleasure? So here comes your pleasure with laughing, right?
Oh
Ask
yeah.
Anna Marie, your thoughts lead to your feelings, which lead to your behaviors. Yes, yes, and yes.
Yep, it does.
So, for those who are joining me, I have today with me LA Wade, beautiful LA Wade, kind of giving us the story of her past and how she has recognized who she is, and embracing every area of her life to make her a better person. LA was married for 16 years. Now she's divorced. Now LA started a business and it's called Cocktails with LA. So now this is another part of your life that we need to dig into.
Oh my God, that is
Where
so
them
funny.
cocktails come in. I mean,
Okay,
before she start, we're gonna have another episode in about, so we're just doing a dry run,
yeah, this is a dry one.
very high level.
Very dry.
We have an
Very
hour,
dry. There is no
dry.
moisture here at all right now.
No moisture, no
The
lube,
night is still young.
so
Okay, so
cocktails. Tell me
yes,
how cocktails
cocktails.
started.
So actually, back in 2016, when my marriage was falling apart, I had experienced a lot of craziness near the end of our marriage. Like, not even just for myself, but just around me. I saw a lot of craziness, and I went to Toa Beer. She's a PR person in the city, very well. She had a mentoring program, and I brought her this idea, and she was asking me like, why? So it was actually very hard, like, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do this? And I just kind of left it because I didn't formulate it fully. And then I went on a date in 2018 where I was getting along with the guy at lunch. We were at lunch. And I was like, he was talking about his children so affectionately. And I'm like, why did you never marry, the mother? Or when did you get divorced? And he said, what makes you think I'm not married? And I was like, oh. He goes, it's 2018, LA, get with it. And I was just thinking, man, I know I've been in my marriage for a long time, but shit, when did that change? Wow. And he's not in, like, polyamorous would mean that people are in the know. Mm-hmm. So that's not what that was.
This was hidden.
Right. And I was pissed off. I knew I had grown because I was pissed off that he didn't give me the option because he wasn't hot enough to have an affair.
Oh my God. One of those.
Ladies, you weigh our options. Was he hot as shit? Did he make a lot of money? Was he powerful? Could he give you access?
Nothing.
No? Why aren't you telling me that you're already married? Like, I don't have any business. I think myself sounds so bad, but like, honestly, that's not actually how I think. But it's also a factor. It's like, I'm not going to lie that that's part of it, right? Mm-hmm. Based on wherever you are. So anyway, I had that date. Then I went on another date, and the guy was very overly spiritual in a way that was outside of my comfort zone because I'm a Christian. I tell people I'm a Christian. They hate when I tell them I'm a Christian because I smoke weed and I talk about sex so openly, but Jesus is good with it, so I'm good. That's your issue. Right? So he was offering things up to, gods or whatever, goddesses. And I felt, and I'm not opposed to African spirituality, but I don't practice it and I don't know enough. And this was our first date. Like, what? You're offering cupcakes into Lake Ontario. That's a lot. So I was like, man, and I'm telling my girlfriends these stories and they are saying, that's nothing. I knew this guy, the blah, 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 blah. And someone else would say, that's nothing. Blah, blah. And I'm like, these cocktails are crazy. That's when I tagged it what it was. And then I wanted to do it as a podcast, but I don't know I work at the University of Toronto. I don't know how to do any of this kind of stuff. And so I went to an event for a cruise, a real estate cruise with Caribbean Vibrations. And at the event, I met Sheldon Shaw of Potential Films, who is a videographer. And I was like, I want to work with this person to bring to life cocktails. And one day he came down and he filmed me. So I have if you go back to my YouTube channel and subscribe to Cocktails with LA, there's another video that kind of gives like an intro about me. And it's an interview. And he just had done this interview, a day or so after meeting me at this event. And it ended up, I said something on there saying that I wanted to be like the Anthony Bourdain of love, sex, dating, and relationships. I want to travel all around the world and get these stories because these cocktails are like crazy. And he put it together as a intro video, and it
Mm-hmm.
was like it started to manifest itself because I decided to go on the cruise. I hired him to follow me on the cruise, and I started to film people in Puerto Rico, St. Thomas,
Nice.
Antigua, all over the place, right? All of these different islands. Then I'm from Grenada, so I went to Grenada at Christmas time, and I knew that I wanted to do stuff there. This was in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I had filmed my first, like the one that I would release as my first episode. And even before that, I had a booth at the Everything to Do with Sex show because I'm like, where else will I get better cocktails than at the sex show? So that was money well spent.
So Natalie said, "I thought your name was for it's about drinks. I thought your name was all about drinks. Oh my
No,
God! Still,
yes.
no, it wasn't. No, it's not.
Well, if you see it's spelt, it's cocktails, TALES. So when
There
you're
you
looking me up,
go.
you have to do cock tails, like a
Tails.
story
So
with LA.
Greg, her social media is at the bottom of the page, so you can find her Facebook and her YouTube channel, and all her Instagram stuff will be on there, so you can follow her. So tell me, when was the first? I know when you met, you told me a couple. So share one of the stories why you think that this cocktails. Give me some juicy ones and some cocktails that you talk about.
Okay, so I will say that in the very beginning when I was doing cocktails with LA, I didn't know, before I even met Sheldon, I have a friend that is involved in like the sex world. He kind of goes to the sex parties, and he always talks to me in detail about his sexual escapades. And so I would always listen to him and ask so many questions like, well, how does that work? Like when people stick their thing in a glory hole, and I don't know. I know I'm the sex addict, but I actually don't have a lot of experience within the sexual world because my sexual experience comes from wanting to just please whoever I'm with. So if they're not into kink, then I don't know anything about kink. And Black people, if they don't have the right partner, they're afraid of kink. So so it's not something that was a part of my sexual experience from all of those times. Very, very much like, traditional kind of sex. And I was taking on the reason why I would be married twice in my life and still get marriage proposals is because I've been conditioned to be a wife. Right? So I'm very wifey when I'm in a relationship. But I'm also like, you have to make me feel very, very safe. Now I can say that. I didn't know that then. But if I'm very, very safe, I'm not going anywhere. And you have to sex toy almost, because I'm open to being sexual in different ways. But I've always depended on my partner to do that. And so the self-exploration part will come in a little bit. But this is where I was then. And so he got me in contact with different people that were part of that sex world. And, I would do an interview. So some of the craziest interviews I got was, there was one guy who wasn't on film, but I have his audio. And he was telling me that he felt this desire to possess women, and it was bothering him. And that when he got married, the only way he knew to break that was to allow her to have sex with another man while he watched. And that's how he relinquished control over his wife. And this is a Black person, just in case people
really. So that kind of behavior is called cuckolding, but it's usually whites.
Right. Couple. I have a bunch of interviews that are involved Black people that are talking about stuff like this.
I love it. I mean, I know they do. Don't get me wrong, but majority, it's a white man seeing a white man seeing his wife being screwed by a Black man, his wife, right?
Yeah.
Then he relinquished control, and then they're being called all these nasty names. Listen, that's amazing.
Yeah. No, and they were from the west coast of Canada.
Of course, that's why.
And all of the people that I was not all, but the majority of them were also at one time brought up in the Adventist or a Christian church.
Always.
Wow, that has really run amok in people's lives.
Listen,
it sounds like.
Those are the ones that just go wild.
They
Oh,
released.
wild. Yes.
In terms of like another one, I was in on one of the cruises. I was in the hot tub, and a couple was telling me that they escaped from being the Mormons. They were in the Mormon faith, and that and then they just started. That's the other thing. People tell me everything. They tell me everything because I make them comfortable. I have. Who am I? Once they know my story, I share with them my story.
Mhm.
They feel a comfort level to share things with me. In fact, there's been many people that have DM'd me that are both in the public eye, that are just people that scroll through my feed, and they confess things to me.
Mhm.
They want to know, is this wrong that I'm doing this, or what about that? Like, I'm not a sex educator. I'm not a sexologist. I have a master's in education. I went to the University of Toronto. Gender equity and inclusivity is a big part of what I do. So I have, and then I work as a registrar at the University of Toronto for a program that specifically works with students who have been disadvantaged, and that includes LGBTQ, it includes refugees, it includes people who have learning disabilities, sole support parents, people who have been in prison, and these are the people that I would counsel throughout their time in school. So when I started to interview people, I think that aspect came out because I really am non-judgmental about anything, really.
You know what it is? I don't think anyone has to know your story to open up to people. People are awake nowadays. If you don't notice it,
Yeah,
LA,
I do.
energy don't lie, bubbleness don't lie, and the fact that you have that spunky, smiley, boom boom rah rah
Yeah, let's go.
personality. You know what I mean? People are going to have that conversation, and those conversation needs to be had
Yes.
because for many years I was an introvert. So for me, even speaking to you right now and doing all of this is huge.
Yes.
What you're doing, and Natalie, she's on here. My sister is on here too. I had always wanted to go around with a mic to talk to people, but the
Okay.
fear comes in, and then here comes my bubbly LA who's doing it. I get, how I get my interviews and my questions are people coming in my inbox and talking to me. But to
Right.
go and said, "Hey, what's your sex life like?"
But
It's not.
also, you're a sex educator, right?
It is. So
So
it's
you're the sex educator.
yeah.
So it's
Hmm.
different. It's different because they might feel like they're being, interviewed for your studies, or
Probably, yeah,
but
probably.
I'm them. I'm the same as them. I'm the girl that's like, yo, did you ever go on this date and the guy da 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 da, and then they're like, no, it's like this, and but so we have great conversations, and that's what my interviews are like. When COVID happened, I couldn't become Anthony Bourdain anymore so easily
Hmm.
because we can't fly and we couldn't travel at that time.
Yes,
And
yes.
what that did was make me go on IG Live. And Instagram Live is where people really saw me, because in my
Mm.
interviews, I was just asking people questions. And yes, I can be witty with my guests, but they didn't know anything about me.
Hmm.
So on IG Live, it's like this. I can't hide. This is who I am. This is what I think. This is how I feel. And this is where I go with it. When I'm doing my actual healing for myself, I share that process openly. So people are intrigued by that. They're like, what? This girl is saying this shit out loud?
Okay, so that's going to be my next question because you mentioned earlier that you were a Bible thumper and you used to go to church, or you're
I
classified
didn't
yourself.
go to the church at all. I
Okay,
got saved
but
later.
you were a Christian,
Yes, I
right?
am. Yes.
So, has anybody ever inboxed you and said, "My girl, what the hell are you doing? Why are you
Yes.
having your life out there like that?" Have you
Not
ever been?
like that, but yes, I had a girlfriend because I wanted
Mhm.
to do a topic on sex and sexuality.
Mhm.
And I went to my girlfriend who was in the church, who I used to smoke weed with and go to the club with.
Mhm.
And she was like, I rebuke you. And I say, I took witches out of different prostitutes. And I'm like, yo, do you even know how you sound right now? Like, I was there with you, remember? We smoked together. But she has a privilege because she went to a private school. She comes from a different socioeconomic status than I did.
Mhm.
I gained my education later in life. She
Mhm.
grew up with it. So the mentalities are a little bit different.
Different.
And
Mhm.
my path is different. And I called her on it. I was like, you're being privileged right now and you don't know anything about my life. So don't proclaim to have to, exorcise the demons out of me.
Exorcism, throw some holy water.
Yeah, she's lucky I didn't spit in her eye. And because that's how I felt at the time, right? But later, so I ended up doing the show with Pastor Daniel Winter, who is
My cousin, by the way.
Is that your cousin?
Yes.
Stop the madness.
Let's keep talking.
I feel like everybody's your cousin anyway.
You realize I'm gonna listen. We know people, but keep going.
But yeah, so Pastor Daniel Winters from Open Arms Church, Sheldon referred me to him because he's like, you know what? He's spoken openly before about how he became a pastor and what his journey was. So I called him and we ended up having a 2-hour conversation. And that is when this man said to me that I am the woman at the well. And it's a Bible story about when Jesus waited for this woman. He told the disciples to go on, and the Samaritan woman comes to the well, and she's there at a particular time that wouldn't normally be because she doesn't want other people to see her because she had already been married 5 times. She was living with a 6th man right there, and she was thirsty. This is where I got the premise for my book, Thirsty AF, From the Desert to the Well. But but this is what has happened, is that I lived my life dehydrated, falling into mirages of thirst traps through men and different aspects, and it was wreaking havoc in my life. Thus the addictions, it was just ridiculous. But I didn't know. I wasn't in awareness. So anyway, this woman at the well, Jesus, he asked her for water, and she's like, who am I to give you water? And then he tells her, if you drink from this well, you will never thirst again. And of course, the analogy is he is the well. And that's why my Christianity has fundamentally transfigured my life. And I never understood that because I didn't grow up in the church, which probably saved me. Or open to hearing actually the word. Because all those other crazies that grew up in the church, they're the ones that try to come for me like, this girl is this girl is that. And I will even swear at them.
You got to do what you got to do. But that's great, though. As Destiny said, that was a great analogy, And your journey has been tremendous, and for you to have a smile on your face and talking about it and just hopping away, that's tremendous.
That's God. That's what I mean. God.
Of course.
Right?
For those who are joining me, we have Ellie. We're talking about her journey through sex addiction and now her cocktails with LA, the different journey of all the different dick conversations that she's come across. And I want people who's on here to realize and recognize what this conversation is all about. It's about stories. It's about building characters, making us stronger, to make us, hold hand and sing kumbaya. It is what it is. And because we don't have this conversation on social media, because if we never had social media, so many people would be suffering in silence and not realizing that, okay, I'm not the only one that's going through this. So here is LA talking about her journey and what took her out of the pit of where she thought that, oh my God, I'm hurt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I need to be working on it. First and foremost is acknowledgement. And the second one is fixing it. So LA, this is, listen, we're not saying it's easy.
Guy.
It's hard.
But see my eyes? I've been crying for all weekend. I've been bawling my eyes out. I can't sleep. Like I was suicidal at so many different times of my life. Hey, Curtis, nice to see you. I don't get to see people. What is the name of your book? Yeah, it's good. It's not released yet, but it's Thirsty AF, From the Desert to the Well.
Oh, and, that's powerful. That's going to be nice.
Thank you. Thank you. And so now I've put it into all of my, when I do an IG live, or that's where you get to see, every Sunday at 4:20, I do IG lives with really just interesting people. Or like this Sunday, I have comedian Shang, who has a 1-hour special on Amazon Prime. He's a funny ass man who talks a lot about sex and cannabis and all of these different things, but he's also very political, which is what I am as well.
I wanted to talk about cannabis. Well, continue.
Yeah.
Continue before we get on there.
Yeah, no, I was so the person, to your point about me always being happy I've just recently learned, actually, you were on one of my shows because from doing my IG lives, FIVA TV reached out to me, and that's how I got the late night talk show called Late Night Cocktails, which I got a deal to do 13 episodes, and I've done 6 of them. Donna is in 2 of them.
Yes.
So far, I'm sure she'll be in more once we start filming again, but we're on hiatus while we try to sell the show. The whole purpose of that show is to try to get it syndicated. And, I like the show because I'm getting to do the 2 things that I did when I was both doing cocktails and then now the IG live stuff. So you're getting a little bit of both. But the IG live stuff happened because of COVID. And when I started doing those, I was just, you're locked up. I was drinking more than I've ever drank in my life. I'm not a drinker. So I was just like, and I was smoking so much weed. I was just smoking so much weed and it just became ridiculous. And then I went on a cleanse and I fasted towards my creator. And that's when things started to change. It was during that time. It was during that time. You'll read about that part. But it's a lot. I could go in so many different directions, but that's how the IG lives became popular. And then I reintroduced weed into my life, but now I do it from a very distinct place of creativity and worship. Whereas I was eating my ass off after having some, because you get the munchies, I decided that I'm going to use it as a meditation for discipline, because I started to relate the thirst and the hunger that I had for sexual appetite and relationship with the munchies that I was getting when I was smoking. So instead of doing that, I would meditate and discipline my flesh while I was smoking. So I would feel that same spirituality that I would get, but it would be a real taming of the flesh. And then it became just natural. So I don't need to smoke all the time anymore. I can smoke. I don't even need to smoke anymore. And I've tested it to see if this can be like this, regardless. You can't tell if I've smoked or if I haven't smoked, because I'm the same now. And that's what I like about it, because now I can be more purposeful with my cannabis use.
You have said some powerful words just a while ago, LA. Um, it just brings me back, and I'm hoping that what LA just said just now is about being purposeful and of your journey, and this is where mindfulness comes in as well, right here, right now, and everybody's way of meditating and bringing back to source is totally different. LA found her way of bringing back to the point that you really don't need weed, and she understands, who it is, and everybody's journey is different. So LA, what you just said, it was just powerful, and I'm really hoping that who's on here and watch it on the replay and digest everything that she just said, because it make so much sense. Everybody's meditation is different.
Yeah.
But we have to be purposeful in everything that we do. We have to be mindful in everything that we do. Sorry to cut you, LA, but I just had to just ride the back on that, what you just said, because it's very, very important. Very important.
Yeah. And when this is what we call the work. People, we do these things that I call spiritual bumper stickers. Don't have any fear. Peace. I'm going to generate peace in my life. But nobody is talking about how. And the how is the work.
Yes, it is.
Right. And so we like to be comfortable. Think about it. I think it's like 1% of the world's population exercises. 1%.
I'm on there.
So spiritually, it's also like exercise, right? Mentally and spiritually, it's like exercise. And I feel like I'm kind of like in beast mode, and I'm part of that 1% because I both like to physically exercise and I mentally and spiritually I'm not afraid to make mistakes. I'm not afraid to
work.
I'm not afraid to work. And I feel pain, a lot of pain. I do not nearly come to this conversation to make it seem easy. Look at my bags under my eye. Like, I'm tired. But I've also learned that's what I was going to say, is that in our when you were in our show, the meditation show where I was manifesting the right man.
Yes.
That show has fundamentally changed everything that you now hear me say from that point forward. And it's because I can acknowledge the things that I'm growing through, but my words are like a prayer. Now I understand prayer without ceasing. It's to be in constant manifestation and gratitude for everything bad or good. That's
wow. Wow. That is powerful. Because remember when even what was the guest? What was her name again? Imani. What she said, and I came home and I talked to my sister about it. When we decide that we're going to go online dating, we're going on that dating. We're saying, I'm just going to go look. Although we want something, but we're going to go look. I know I'm not going to find the right person. And when she said no, we have to be mindful, be loving, talk about what is it that we want, then go in there with a loving feeling and listen. And I said to my sister, no wonder you couldn't get nobody online dating because we were going out there pissed off at the world.
Well, we vibrate.
But exactly, it's vibration, it's energy. Yeah, you know, that's crazy. That was just phenomenal.
Yeah, so that show just kind of just happened, but like look how amazing. It just fundamentally changed my whole life there.
Listen, it was amazing, and the fact that you had her as a guest, you listen and you execute.
Yeah,
you know, it's one thing that you're listening and said, oh, and then don't do the work. But as you said, you love to do the work. Jackson, it's very different for a man as a sex addict, especially when you don't smoke or drink.
So even for men, I'm glad you brought that up because there are men that have my type of sex addiction. What it sounds like he's referencing is there's different types, and the first one is the hypersexual, usually male. There are some times that women are also hypersexual. And this is the person who has to masturbate all the time, is addicted to porn. You know, they just they'll go get a prostitute because they have to have sex. Now, if I was to take that concept and look at the fact that we live in a society that is hypersexual, we literally lead relationships with, let me see what you're working with, right? Like, let me feel what it's going to be like to be up inside of, and we're not getting to know anybody. So that's why I say we're all sex addicts, because we've trained ourselves to approach one another from the perspective of our genitals and what that in our minds. And I don't sit in judgment of that because obviously I do it too. But we're not willing to say that. It's because there's stigma around that. I'm just going to rip off the stigma because we're all doing it anyway. And if you can find some kind of cathartic release from hearing me say it, to know that there's nothing wrong with you. It's just if you feel like you need to change it. I had to. My life was exploding, imploding. It was terrible. So I had to change something about my life. Whereas it may not be impacting your life negatively, but you may want to be mindful of how it's impacting the lives of those you're sleeping with.
Exactly.
So it's not just only about you. When you're sleeping with someone, it's two people that are coming together. So you have a certain responsibility. I think that the problem comes in with what Mike Truth, my creative partner, always says, is our ability to respond. Like, what are we capable of doing? And with our traumas, our trust issues in our melanated community, and all of the other intersections that affect us as Black people, that is showing up in so many different ways, and we are fucking it out.
It's true. But it is true, though.
And that's an addiction.
Yeah. Especially you don't know where it's stemming from. So the next best thing is to just have sex.
Yes.
Sex with partner after partner after partner. You're wondering, why am I so frustrated? And you know, I so agree with you with that, LA. I know we only have a little bit left. So I know you also have I don't know if it's, you do cannabis, and I know you have access to. I know you do your T-shirt. What about the cannabis part of it? I'm so curious. I've never tried it. I think I gave you a joke. Yes, I've never tried it. I think I told you a joke that I tried the pipe thingy, and everybody was laughing after me because I wasn't doing it properly. So, so cannabis, and I always hear that when you smoke, like your sex game is off the chain.
Oh my gosh, because it lowers inhibitions. Right? So just like alcohol, it lowers your inhibitions.
Yeah,
But
I don't even drink either, but okay.
I don't. I'm not a drinker. But what happens is your whole body is intensified. You're
Mm.
feeling everything, and so especially if you are intentional about who you're sleeping with,
Mm-hmm.
everything is an experience. Then you are sensing things on like levels that I can't even explain.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is where I came into my understanding of sexual self pleasure, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to fall off the wagon and just be like out here, who wants this work? You understand? I have to keep it, for someone special. I
Yeah,
understand that.
exactly.
Not
Yeah.
everybody can get this. A side note, are you just not amazed at how many men just come to the table with just their dick in their hand? Like, that's it. That's what
That's
you bring into the table is just your penis.
it. Yeah.
None.
Don't forget about all those dick pics that we were talking about the other day.
Oh Lord.
Jesus,
I
but we
just
won't go
got
there
another one.
tonight.
I got another one.
That's another show.
That's another show for sure. But what was I saying? I don't even remember. I'm just, I'm really. Oh, it was the self pleasure thing,
Yeah.
and the cannabis thing. By the way, I started cannabis because they wanted to give me prescription drugs for anxiety and depression after coming out of my marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just completely all over the place. And a friend of mine gave me a high CBD, a low THC combination, and everything in the universe stabilized for me. And because it was high CBD and low THC, I wasn't necessarily high, but I was still stable.
Mm.
And so you'll hear people talk about CBD oil and things like that. That's what that's for. It has no psychoactive ingredients in the CBD at all, but it still calms you down. But like if you are a drinker, then you enjoy drinking. If you like to smoke or eat cannabis, then you understand why you do that.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened for me is I started to have ones that were a little bit more balanced in terms of both CBD and THC. And then we're almost to the day I picked up my first vibrator and teased the world that I was going to use it for the first time in my life. I've never, up until last May, had never used a vibrator in my entire life.
Oh, I love it. I'm with a smile on her face. She's saying.
So I picked up this thing. I made a video. If you go to my IG page, you can go right down to the bottom.
I saw it yesterday.
Okay. Yeah, so I was, teasing people to say like, hey, today's the day. There's no way in hell I was going to use that vibrator. So WeVibe actually gave me a clitoral stimulator, which is just on the outside. Mm-hmm. And I smoked some weed, girl. And this is a cocktail. Woo! This is a cocktail. There was only a fake cock involved. Not even a full cock, a little.
Weed and sex. Oh yeah.
Hit me up, Kurt. But
God.
So I smoked some weed and I meditated on what I wanted to experience. Mm-hmm. And I lay down on my bed for the first time in my life. Mm-hmm. And I took this little purple thing that's kind of, it's shaped like this, So this part is the action right here. Yeah. And it gave you access to the speeds very easily.
Yeah.
Who's working there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I just
calm down, LA. Calm down.
So I put the first thing on, and then I cut myself, and I'm just like I'm bracing myself, like, and then I'm feeling the weed, right? So I instantly start to relax, even though I couldn't have been that tense anyway because I had already smoked. Okay. And the very first setting was too intense for me. I was like, I threw it up in the air because I couldn't believe that, like. So then I got high on love. It's called this lube that people use. That's cannabis infused also. Mm-hmm. And why it's so good is because it sends like the same way when you smoke and your eyes go red. So when you put it on in your clitoris, you should use that. That could be a good intro for you in cannabis. You don't have to ingest it. You just put it on your tip and on your nipples.
Listen, I know what you're talking about, the clitoris stimulators. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, it's the gel. So when I put the thing back on and I included the gel, let me tell you, It didn't take long
Girl,
for me to go 0 to 100. I was like,
girl,
what is this magic beast? And
girl.
it changed my life because it made it easier to say no.
Hmm.
Because I was giving the pleasure to myself. I
Exactly.
was learning who I was. And
Hmm.
I think you have to, when you start to work with me on my sex addiction, we're gonna have to do like
Gonna
private
talk all of
sessions.
everything,
I
everything.
want to know all about the vagina and what I'm supposed
Girl,
to be reaching for.
girl.
Because I have to, at the end of this month,
Hmm.
go internally. And I'm
Hmm.
scared.
No,
I have
listen.
not used anything about it.
By the time I'm done with it, no scaring. So what LA is talking about, we're going to be working together in coaching session, and I'm so looking forward to this.
Yes.
And the good thing about this coaching session is that we're going to be actually sharing it with our audience. So
Working.
yay,
Hello.
of course. So yay to that. So LA, we're gonna tighten up. And girlfriend, I want to thank you so much for joining.
Thank
This
you.
was an amazing conversation. And for those who are listening, watch it on the replay. Watch it as many times. So all the nuggets that she's given, because she's given some powerful nuggets
Thank
that we have to listen to. Those who are going through whatever issues, not only addiction but any form of trauma. The
you.
nuggets that was shared tonight was just phenomenal. And I
Thank
am going
you.
to leave with this: our past. Don't just live in their past. Don't forgive. We have to forgive our past circumstances and look ahead. We have to be mindful of right now. We have to show up to be authentic, to be who we are, our true being. We're here for a short time. Use it. Use it with love. Come from a place of love. Show up. If you think or you believe that you can't do it by yourself, reach out and touch. Heads up, chest out, and own your shit. This is Donna Savage with Talk with Savage Desires with L.A. Wade. Have an awesome night. Peace out.
Peace out. Thank you.